There are 4 books in the Bible that we call Gospels. The good news according to whoever. And each one tells a similar story, but takes a different angle on who this Jesus person is and what this Jesus person is doing. Mark is all about this rushed story of a secret Messiah. Someone who is doing amazing things, but tells everyone not to tell anyone else. He is saving the entire world, redeeming all the cosmos, and aren't you lucky to know about it? Because later, everyone will find out. Matthew sees Jesus as a new Moses, and a new king for Israel, the authoritative interpreter of the law for the Jewish people, and the Jewish people only. That's why in Matthew, Jesus gives this little speech standing on a mountain, just like Moses stood on Sinai, and delivers these commandments. John is doing his own thing. And Luke is all about the revolution, about overturning the way that things are, about changing the world, and it is going to be a surprise for a lot of people. Luke starts off, after all, with Mary meeting Elizabeth, and Elizabeth saying, "Oh, my baby jumped for joy at the knowledge of your baby." And Mary hears this news and is elated and sings a song about overthrowing the empire, crashing down the government, changing how things are. Luke has John the Baptist on the shores of the river Jordan talking about making high places low and low places high. Taking this crooked way of life and making it straight and even. Luke has Jesus start his public ministry quoting Isaiah, "I have been anointed to bring good news to the poor, recovery of sight to the blind, freedom to the oppressed." A year of God's favor. Luke wants things to change. Luke wants things to change in a big way. Luke wants the entire world flipped over. And when you read Luke, you can see that again and again and again. Our gospel reading today includes those famous Beatitudes. Those lovely little statements that we usually grab from Matthew because they're a little more lovely over there. In Matthew, it's, "Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Be cool. Be humble, be good, love God, follow the law," all of that kind of stuff. Let's not get too crazy here. But in Luke, blessed are the poor. Blessed are the hungry. Blessed are those who weep. Blessed are those who are getting hurt by the systems of oppression, by the powers of sin and death and everything that makes life less, by that by that empire based over there in Rome. Blessed are you who are at the bottom of every ladder we can think of. And then, to make the point clearer, woe to you who are rich. You've received your consolation. You've gotten your reward. You are the best you can be. And when things change, you are going to trade places with the poor. Woe to you who are filled now. You will be trading places with the hungry. Woe to you with power and privilege and prestige. You will be trading places with those who... And you have to understand the world that Luke was writing in. I have to get a little less preachy and a little more teachy now, but you have to understand the world that Luke lived in and the world that Jesus lived in. It was a world where a very few people, a very small percentage of the population, a few percent, lived in relatively opulent wealth. The emperor lived in more comfort than anyone else could possibly imagine. The same for the senators, for the governors, for the leaders of the empire. Enough and more than enough and more than more than more than enough. They, after all, could collect rents from everyone else. They could collect taxes from everyone else. They could tear down their barns and build bigger barns and fill it up and say to their souls, eat, drink, and be merry, and take everything that isn't nailed down. There were a few more people, a slightly larger percentage, who did okay for themselves, who had enough and more than enough, a bit of a surplus, maybe not enough to tear their barns down and build bigger ones, but enough that they did not have to worry about the future. They were going to be okay. And then there was the vast majority of the population, 60% or more of the people, who hovered right around that subsistence level of life. Some of them were consistently just above it. Some of them were sometimes above and sometimes below, and some of them were consistently below for as long as they could last being consistently below. And subsistence level is subsistence level. Enough food to get through today, in the hope that there will be enough food to get through tomorrow. No medical care to speak of, no savings to speak of, barely any hope to speak of. Just enough if they were lucky. And when Luke sees this world, when Jesus sees this world, when, dare I say it, the God who is love sees this world, he knows, they know, that it is not okay. That this is not what was meant to be. That when you have so many living just barely getting by, and others with opulent wealth that is barely imaginable to the people, one could arrange things differently to make sure that everyone has enough and more than enough. And so Luke imagines what so many of his contemporaries imagined, what maybe Jesus imagined, but I'm not quite so sure. That what would happen, what would be just, what would make sense is for those of us on the bottom to get what those on the top have, and for those on the top to feel what we feel now. For those who have more than enough money to experience what it is like to have none and to be in debt. For those with enough food and fat bellies to experience what it is like to be hungry, to go to bed hungry, to not know if you have enough food for tomorrow, to not know if your kids will eat tomorrow. For those who laugh and throw parties and dance, to experience the sorrow that those on the bottom feel. And of course, for it to go the other way too. for those at the bottom to be at the top for once. It's an imagination that makes sense. It's an imagination that I can get. It's the imagination of envy and jealousy, of saying, I want what they have, and I want them to not have what they have. I'm not sure that that's where Jesus actually goes. I'm not sure that that's the kind of thing Jesus imagines. I'm not sure that that's the kind of thing that the God who is love imagines, but I can get why Luke imagines it. I would propose that what Jesus imagines, what the God who is love imagines, what the God who is love is working towards is not a world of stark reversal, but a world of generosity where there is enough and more than enough, and it is distributed so that everyone gets to enjoy enough and more than enough. So that there is not a small group of people with opulent wealth and a large group of people with barely anything at all, but instead, maybe, just possibly, a bunch of people having a good time. But I also know how that can feel. There is a saying that when you have enjoyed privilege, equality can feel like oppression. Our little thermometer, barometer, sense of what is moral gets out of whack. What do you mean? I don't have 100 pairs of unworn shoes in my closet. Suddenly I have only the shoes that I need, only the ones that I wear. What kind of oppression is this? What do you mean I do not have a freezer full of food that I will never eat in my basement? And a pantry full of food that is rotting just off my kitchen? What do you mean I only have the food that I eat and the knowledge that I will have enough to eat tomorrow? What oppression is this? How terrible it is that I am provided for by God. What I am suggesting is that it is easy to believe that if I lose anything, I am somehow being hurt, even if I don't realize that I'm losing it because I wasn't using it in the first place. And what I am suggesting is that the blessing that Jesus offers is precisely the hope that maybe we could all share those things that we have with each other so that we all can enjoy the fruits of creation. It is, after all, not a blessing to be poor, but it is a blessing to not be so attached to our stuff that we cannot let it go and that it runs our lives. It is not a blessing to be hungry, but it is a blessing to enjoy a meal with family and friends and strangers and enemies. It is not a blessing to weep, but it is a blessing to show up for each other in those times of mourning. It is, in short, a blessing, a big blessing, a huge blessing, a blessing that we can scarcely imagine, to abide in love. To abide in the love that makes us share from the things that we have and from the people that we are. To be a part of each other's lives in ways where we can be blessings and where we can be blessed. Jesus, of course, goes on. But our other reading is from this letter of James. This letter where he says this thing that we often don't like to think about too much. It is not enough to hear. It's not enough to know. It's not enough to be able to recite chapter and verse. It's not enough to be able to recite the hymns. It's not enough to know what you're supposed to do and to feel proud that you know what you're supposed to do and to have the theology down. You have to do it. You can't just know the thing. You have to do the thing. I cannot just know the thing. I have to do the thing. We cannot just know the thing. We have to do the thing. We cannot just believe the thing. We have to live the thing. It is making that jump. It is taking that step that makes the blessings that we have disruptive to the ways that things are. It is taking that step that makes the blessings that we share revolutionary in a world that is so often ruled by the powers of sin and death and everything that makes life less. It is not enough to say, "Blessed are the poor." We must be blessings to the poor. And we must accept blessings when we are poor. We must involve ourselves in this economy of grace, in this great river of blessing, in this place where we receive and send blessing, like glitter in the club, letting it get everywhere. Because it is when we do that, when we give and we receive, when we are part of this thing, when we abide in this love, that we discover this rain of love that is growing all around us, that is sending out shoots and leaves, that is building up like a mustard tree, that is becoming something new and bigger and more powerful every day. It is when we abide in blessing, it is when we abide in love that we see the world transformed. And if we participate in that, if we become a part of that, if we live in that, we might just see those powers of sin and death and everything that makes life less destroyed, laid in a grave, gone forever. And we might just have enough and more than enough. And we might, all of us, every last one, every piece of creation, every human, every animal, every plant, every rock, every little bit of this universe that God creates and sustains, we might, all of us, have enough and more than enough and more than more than more than more than more than enough. And what a wonderful, astonishing, amazing, and blessed world that would be.